Hi, everybody. Welcome to Six Steps to a Perfect Pre-Flight Brief. My name is Delia Colvin, and we're going to spend, I believe this webinar is just exactly about an hour, going through some steps that you can to improve your weather safety. Let's talk about, let's see if you can hear me first. If you can hear me all right, please raise your hand. Oh, awesome. Perfect. All right, if you can see the blue screen with my picture on it, please raise your hand again. Wonderful. All right, and then down in the chat area, if you could send me 3 pieces of information. First one is what your pilot rating is. Second one is city and state that you fly out of. And then the third one is yes, if you've attended my webinars before, no, if you have not. Hi, Errol. Oh, that's a nice way to do that. Thank you. ATP. Not going to get to say hi to everybody, but hi, Tracy, Darshan, Gasitha, that is. Oh, Darshan, you're out of Asheville. I love Asheville. Hi, David, Kevin. Oh, Carl, I love seeing Rusty Pilots on here also. You getting back to flying? I hope so. Mark, student pilot. I love seeing student pilots here. It's one of my favorite things. Bob, another student. Looks like we've got folks from, oh, Rick, you're in Bristol. I used to have a friend that was a CFI over at Bristol. Flight instructor. Jay, I can't think of his last name. He's up in DC now. He went into the music industry for a while. Hi, Randall. And Robert out of Mayberry. Not Pleasant. All right, I'm going to scan through here. Welcome, everybody, to 6 Steps to a Perfect Pre-Flight Brief. My name is Delia Colvin, and we're going to spend about an hour going through some things that you can do to fly safer and really prep yourself for that. This is one of, in my opinion, is one of the most important webinars that I do because it lays in the basics, and we're going to talk a little more about that a bit. But first, let's talk about some troubleshooting tips. The first one is in order to have the best coverage that you can have, it's best to close all other windows, all other apps. If you were somebody that's trying to look at satellite and look at some of the stuff, it might be a little difficult on your phone. The computer might be better because we are going to be looking at satellite and radar and zooming in on some things so that you can learn what you're looking for a little bit. And also, then you've got the chat room here. And if you go to the chat room and you have any difficulty, you can send that off to Jen. Now, Jen monitors the chat room, and she is your go-to person if you are having any difficulty. As a matter of fact, she also monitors our emails and makes sure that I get those that I need to get and responds to that. So one thing I would ask is just, you know, I know 99% of you are really nice, but when you're having a difficulty, if you could just keep in mind, she's like your best friend that's going to help you get stuff done. And she will, because she really cares about doing that. So say hi to Jen. Let's see here. We've got a lot of students. Raise your hand if you're a student pilot. Oh, we got a lot of students on this one. Very cool. Well, this one isn't just for student pilots, but I love seeing student pilots on here because I was at one time a student pilot that didn't know what I was doing. All right, so thank you for joining me. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your interest in aviation weather and how to improve your safety, because one of my goals for a very long time is to see pilots live to be very old and gray and not have accidents. Notes and links. You're going to get some really good notes and links at the end. We've got some cheat sheets as well as the notes. So be sure you stick around to the end. Wings credits. All you got to do to get Wings credits is have, Jen, did they log on with their Wings email here? Let's see here. Oh, Jen will let me know in a second. So you may have to give us your Wings email. I'm not sure. Jen, did they log on with that, or yes or no? Oh, she's not sure. If you did not log on with your Wings email address, there was a question mark on this one. Please enter it here. So just go through, everybody enter your Wings email unless you already entered it when you logged in. And she'll make sure and get that. Then all you have to do is be here for most of the webinar, and we will automatically upload it, and you should see it in about 3 to 5 days. And feedback. Your feedback is vitally important to me. I do this for you, and so if there's something that I can do faster, better, smoother, I just do it. And the main thing that we want is you all flying safer. So who am I? My name is Delia Colvin. In 1988, 3 things happened that changed my life. The first one was I got picked up as an air traffic controller. Absolutely thrilled. Loved the job. I was, and that's also where I started really talking to pilots for the first time. I was a Russian interpreter, and it was at not long after I got there, we started inviting the Soviets over for tours, which was kind of interesting because we were still scrambling on them. So, so it was kind of fun. But during that time, I wanted to do a really good job. I worked in the weather unit. I also worked out on the floor and worked some non-radar and radar. Was learning how to work that. And I had this really this concept that I should know how to fly. So I started taking flying lessons. Now I was training with a flyby of the seat of your pants CFI, and the first morning that I went up, he decided to show me what planes could do and showed me how we could do an accelerated stall. Well, he didn't realize that I was scared to death to go up in a plane. So it took me about 3 weeks to get convinced to go back into that aircraft. He didn't do that for a while again. But the thing that he would also do is he'd say, we were up at Anchorage International, and he would say, just call flight service, find out if we can fly. He assumed because I was working in air traffic control that I knew what to do. And so I would call flight service. I never was prepared. I didn't know to fill out a form. I didn't know what to do. So I would just call. They would pull the information out of me piece by piece, and then they would give me a weather briefing. Now, I had no idea what they were talking about. I didn't know what a ceiling was. I didn't know what, what visibilities I should be looking for. All I was listening for was that phrase, VFR flight not recommended. If they said it, I couldn't fly. If they didn't say it, I could fly. And then something else happened. My sister's family lived in, they her husband was a bush pilot, so they lived out in the wilderness. They used to fly all over the place. They flew their plane like most people drive a car, along with dog sleds also. And they went to go flying with my 2 little nephews, 1 7, 1 9, VFR conditions, and ran into some turbulence that flipped their float plane, and we lost my 9-year-old nephew. And that completely rocked my reality, and I realized that there was more to weather than I knew. I did work tower, radar, and approach, but then I went into flight service. I felt like we had like 3 crashes at Knoxville, and I thought, I have got to do something that's going to enhance safety. I worked in flight service, was flight watch trained, which is a very high level of aviation weather knowledge. And then I went to work in Washington, D.C., where I investigated accidents, incidents, and deviations. And what I did is I analyzed those, I wrote up the reports, but then I wrote up a separate thing that said how you could avoid having those accidents yourself. And from that aspect, I was able to start piecing together basics of information. And that's what we're mostly going to talk about here today. Now, one consistent theme in many weather-related accidents is the failure of the pilot to conduct a pre-flight brief. And here's what I found. I found that there was almost a 50-50 line where 50% did get some weather, 50% did not. Of the, and you could say, well, then it's like not making a big difference. No, here's the issue. What I found is that the 50% that were getting the weather didn't know what they were looking at or weren't doing some things that we're going to talk about here. So I'm going to show you what those are. I think it's Scott Crossfield, who at one time was the most experienced rocket plane pilot in the world. He took off one day. He was flying from northern Alabama back to Manassas. Took a look at the weather at 8:30 for a 10:30 flight and flew right into a cell of extreme precipitation, and we lost one of our great pilots. Another one, Steve Fawcett, record-setting aviator, knew the winds and yet became a victim of them on the eastern side of the Sierra. I think I initiated that search and rescue. I think his wife called, and I think I took that call. But I was involved in that search and rescue, and it was not much of a search and was not much of a rescue. So conducting a thorough pre-flight brief is vital to your health, and that is the make or break point for most. So here's what you need to know about this. A standard weather brief is the thing. It's going to spot almost all the weather. I never saw an accident that you couldn't go back to the standard weather brief and say, oh, look, here's where the weather was. It was hiding right in this one area, and if they had gone through a full standard weather brief and knew what they were looking for, they would have found this. Now, a standard weather brief, you should have that within 2 hours of your proposed flight, not right at the 2-hour mark, but within that 2 hours. And it provides the basic weather that you're going to need in a checklist format. And most people say that takes too long. Really, it should take you 5 to 10 minutes, and I'm going to show you how to do that to assess all potential hazards and put together all the weather. For you student pilots and rusty pilots, it's going to take you a little longer, but if you follow this format that I'm showing, in no time at all, you'll be down to 5 to 10 minutes, and you'll get all the information that you need to safely make a decision. It significantly reduces the risk of weather-related accidents. As I said, I never saw an accident where if the pilot had really been looking for all the hazards, they would have found him. And then an update brief. An update brief within 30 minutes of your proposed time provides the latest changes since your standard weather brief. Pilots that do that fly safer. And you also got to make some good decisions along with that. That's a big part of that. However, this update brief, there's a couple of ways you can do it. For you student pilots, you can call flight service, or there is a really great tool that I'm going to show you that'll allow you to get an update brief that you can review right before you do your run-up. So you can go through it, and it will show you all the hazards graphically and also in text. I need to fix that slide. So here's the requirement. Each pilot in command, before beginning a flight, shall become familiar with all available information concerning that flight. But the problem is that is a kind of an overwhelming kind of thing to try and answer that, right? So here is my question for you. What keeps you from getting a great pre-flight brief? What keeps you from getting a great pre-flight brief? We have quite a few ATPs and CFIIs on here. I'm going to sip my coffee while you're doing that. All right. We've got about 33% of you say understanding the weather or weather reports. 17% information overload. Don't know where to start. Conflicting weather forecasts. Okay, we're gonna talk about a lot of this here. So here's what we're going to talk about. Here is the 6 steps to a perfect pre-flight brief. First one is the adverse conditions, then surface analysis, current weather, METAR's PIREP satellite radar, the en route forecast, the terminal forecast, and the winds law forecast. Those are your 6 steps. Now, there are NOTAMs. We're not really going to talk about NOTAMs, but you do need to look at NOTAMs. You need to get the NOTAMs that are going to pertain to you, but you also need to check the Class 2, the published NOTAMs for any airport that you're going to be landing at. So that is that. Now, I do expand on this as you get a little more advanced, still within that 5 to 10 minute range. However, if you can just do this and get that update brief, you're going to be and really be looking for the hazards within that. You're going to be making good, you're going to have good, safe decisions. Hey, Steph. All right. I think Steph has been on almost every webinar we've done for the last month or so. She's such a great student. All right, so here is 1-800-WEATHER brief. This is the site that I recommend that you use to get your standard weather brief. Whether you are a student pilot, whether you are have been doing this for a long time, and there's a reason. And people are going to send me things and say, well, what about ForeFlight? What about DUATS? What about calling flight service? Yeah, those are all great. By the way, calling flight service, absolutely, that is a great one. The problem is that when you go to all these other sites, they are not going to give you all that you're going to get from here. I think that ForeFlight is doing some of the most cutting edge, great stuff. However, for your standard weather brief, this is the only site that I recommend. And if you're going to call flight service, use it in conjunction with this. Now, somebody sent me a rant letter and said, you know, this is just a big sales job for 1-800-weatherbrief.com. The fact is, I have absolutely no reason to recommend this other than it's so much better than anything I ever dreamed that we would have for you all, that I'm just blown away. And when it came out, we would send an email and say, hey, can you add this? Hey, can you do this? Can you? And the next few days they would do it. And now they've got something that is really workable. There's only one thing that I don't like about it, and I'll tell you about that in a moment. But this is the site. Now, over here, we've got several things. For those of you that don't know, I highly recommend a VFR flight plan, that you file and activate a VFR flight plan. Reason is it enhances safety. The pilots that file and activate a VFR flight plan just don't seem to have accidents. They just don't. I never did an investigation on someone that filed and activated a VFR flight plan. Never. Now, they've made it easy because you may know that they took out some of the RCOs, which would be listed down here in FAA items of interest. Please do participate in that. Let the FAA know what is helpful for you. What, you know, they're looking to manage their budget, and so help them out. Let them take down the things or modify the things that they can, while leaving the things that really are vital for safety. And so let them know what those are. Here are featured capabilities. They have way more than this, but easy activate and easy close of your flight plans is a text to activate, text to close on your VFR flight plan. You have to enroll for this, but I recommend that you activate your flight plan on the ramp before you leave, and I recommend that you close it after you land safely and taxi back to your ramp. That's what I recommend. Very simple way to do it. Also, they'll send you flight plan reminders, and we've got the Surveillance Enhanced Search and Rescue, which is basically ADSB out, except that it's attached to your VFR flight plan. And so, if you went out flying and you didn't land at your destination, it would be about an hour before anybody was looking for you, after you were supposed to be there. If you have Surveillance Enhanced Search and Rescue, what it will do is spot you if you stop in the air before you get to your destination, which is why any airport you're landing at, you want to use as a destination on your VFR flight plan, or at least have it in the remarks. I would actually close out a flight plan at every point that you're landing. Now, next gen briefings. This is the reason that I recommend 1-800-WEATHER brief. The toughest thing that we as briefers do, or did, I haven't done it in 5 years, is sort through all of the information to provide you only the information that is vital to you in your flight. And being able to do that means that you are paying more attention to the stuff that is actually on your route during your flight. So Next Gen Briefings does that. It's a piece of software that they've got, and it's just absolutely phenomenal. You're going to see what this does. It highlights your passing time on the tasks for all of your route. It's going to eliminate concerns of, like, let's say there's an AirMet for IFR along your entire route. Well, it's going to say, well, it's only affecting your route, the IFR, during these times, and it's going to plot it on the map. So this is a great, great website. I think that is one of the major breakthroughs in this. So they also have electronic PIREP submission. They have for you IFR guys, flight plan activated, flight plan closed, or flight plan accepted, flight plan changed, and that's going to be vital when we go to ICAO if we ever do. Up here, you'll see it's got weather, but it also has flight planning and briefing, and that's where we go for the briefing. Now you'll notice down here that we've got these how-to videos. These are very simple and how-to videos. Also, if you want to know how any of their feature capabilities work, by the way, regardless of where you get your brief, these feature capabilities are well worth taking a look and really understanding what they are. They've got some phenomenal stuff there. So take a look at this and let's go on. So when you click on flight planning and briefing, this is what comes up. Now, you might just start getting your practice on the ICAO, because we are going to go to ICAO eventually someday. And here you can store your flight plans and you can go through and fill it all out. My recommendation, excuse me just a moment, I'm going to clear my throat. My recommendation is that you enter any airport, you will do a touch and go, stop and go, low approach into the alternate. And the reason why is because I saw a lot of accidents from pilots not checking those, thinking it's not a big deal. Now you're going to fill out this form, not necessarily to file a VFR flight plan, but to enter all the information that you need to get a flight plan. And you can actually click on this button down here, Standard Weather Brief, and it will pop up and it'll say, oh, you got to enter the time that you're departing. Now it will also calculate your time in here. It's a very, very cool form, and we'll translate that. And let's see. And I'm just looking over at Corey. Just reading your. Corey says, can you enter a domestic flight plan and then click ICAO to see the differences? I don't know if you can or not. Let me know if you can. And then it will actually, if you use Navlog, it will calculate your time en route and fuel on board. Just remember that the winds a lot forecast is not accurate. It's not going to do a good job of that. Now, this is the briefing that brings up, and the reason I love this so much is because look up here, we've got adverse conditions, synopsis, current weather, forecast, and NOTAMs. Do you recall what we had on our 6 steps? They're all right there. This is a checklist where you can go through each one of these items and make sure that you're taking a good look at it. Now, there are, as we go to each one of these, it expands. There's more things that you should be looking at. But we'll talk about that. Right here is a button called plain text. Now you can click on that and it will make everything plain text, and you can click it off and it will take it off. For you student pilots, you might want to use that, but don't leave it on plain text. Start learning ICAO right away, because it's going to take you a very long time to learn. You're going to get a cheat sheet for ICAO language. It is the language of aviation weather. It's the main weather that we use for METARs and TAFs, and so you need to be really familiar with it now, so you can use that when you get to the end. Over here, we've got register for briefing updates. My recommendation is that you leave that pretty close to your flight time. Otherwise, you're going to get really crazy with all the pings on new weather. And then right here, this button right here, you student pilots, low time pilots, this button is going to allow you to send a copy of this briefing to your smartphone or whatever. And that is going to be vital, because what you're going to do for your student pilots is you're going to get a briefing, you're going to review the information. If you're going, and I think you should call a briefer when you're first learning how to, but here is my recommendation, is that you get very proficient at doing a briefing, because I don't think you're going to have briefers around for a long time. I think the writing's on the wall that they're taking those out. So send yourself a copy of the briefing and then take it to your CFI and have a discussion. For you rusty pilots, you can send yourself a copy of that briefing and discuss it. There's FAA safety volunteers and they're there to help you. So if you have a problem or a question, you can always take it to them, okay? Make sure it's somebody that knows about weather. You can also register for an update brief, and I would recommend that you do that right before you do your run-up. So here under address, actually, let me jump over here. So here we've got the terrain and color map. This is my favorite. The new ones right over here have a little thing that you can click on for the sectionals. Now the sectionals will help you avoid TFRs because it's going to say if you stay west of this airway or west of this, then you're going to stay out of trouble. It gives you a very specific. You can zoom in, zoom out, and you can see it's got the air mat, that air map for IFR plotted here. And it's got your route plotted here, so you're going to be able to see that. You can also see there is some precipitation or clouds that are coming on shore. Now, anytime you're seeing light precipitation or green or blue west of Colorado, you don't always know what you're looking at because it just depends on where they're scanning. That is a mosaic. You can push this button and you can bring up the satellite view, the visible satellite view during the day. Satellite visible is like a snapshot from outer space. At night, you'll need to use the infrared, which measures temperatures, and it's mostly going to tell you if there's clouds. And if you've got some vertical development. We'll talk more about that in a moment. You can animate the weather to see what it's doing, how fast it's moving. And right here, when we click adverse conditions, we get a drop-down menu. It goes TFR, closed-end safe NOTAMs, convective SIGMAT, blah, 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 right? So these first two have to do with NOTAMs. Now, we want to know if there's any closed or unsafe NOTAMs at any of the runways or any of the airfields that you're going to be landing at. And so if it says 0, we know we're clear here as long as you entered every airport that you intend to land at. TFR doesn't have anything there. Doesn't have that little gold circle there. However, because it doesn't say 0, we know there's a TFR on our route. So that's the NOTAM portions. I recommend that you do this for the TFRs because we just had a guy about 6 weeks ago, I think he was on the call, and he had, I think he didn't do a standard weather brief, but he did follow along on Flight and went out flying, and the TFR wasn't plotted on his XM weather. And so he ended up getting in trouble there. Just one moment. So what my recommendation is, do your standard weather brief and do it on here because it's going to be plotted. There's a record of it and you're going to get all the information that you need. So right here we've got convective SIGMAT, air mat. Now air mats are broad strokes of what weather is going to be there. But in order for them to issue it, it has to cover 3,000 square miles. It has to cover over 50% of the area. It is the meteorologists look at it and say, I think we're going to have those parameters, and they issue it, or I'm not sure it's going to meet those parameters, and they don't issue it. They don't always update it if the weather appears or disappears. So it's just kind of a broad stroke. It's a warning that there could be something, but you still have to know how to look beyond that. We're going to talk a little bit about that. For all these others, convective SIGMAT, urgent pilot report, center weather advisory, and severe weather watch, those are only issued when they're absolutely certain you're going to run into those conditions. So again, convective SIGMAT, urgent pilot reports, center weather advisories, severe weather watches, you only see those when the weather is actually occurring and is severe. Now then, we're on air mats and we drop it down and it's got an air mat for IFR. It's saying no mountain obscuration. And let's see, so we've got this going. And right here it says IFR conditions. Now in here you can see that it's got this little red dot with a white exclamation. It says air mat is active during estimated passing time. And then it's going to give you the times. So you can see that is actually plotted on here, and it's giving you the times that it's going to be a factor for you. Okay, so that's a really cool factor there. Ceilings below 1,000, visibilities below 3, and mist. So here's the thing to know. IFR and mountain, 63% of all weather-related accidents or fatalities were due to the most common pilot error, and that is continued VFR flight into IMC conditions. IMC is instrument meteorological conditions. It is reduced visibilities or flying into clouds, irregardless of what's going on with the ceilings, which are surface related. So you're flying along and you fly into clouds because you have to. That would be flying into IMC conditions because we've got so many student pilots. I'm going to explain that. Now, because of that, the National Weather Service and the FAA took some additional precautions on how you can avoid those conditions. Again, you're going to have to learn how to recognize those, and you start learning that as a process. The standard weather brief is the first part of it. So the way that they did that is they have a briefer, and the briefer is the only one that's going to say that, say VFR flight not recommended. Now, when they say that, that is a statement of the briefer's judgment of whether flight under VFR conditions is doubtful. That's what that is. I have a lot of pilots that used to get really ticked because they thought the briefer was saying you couldn't fly. It is the briefer's responsibility to say that. So they're making a judgment call. What you have to know, you the pilot, whether you're a student pilot, whether you're a rusty pilot, you have to know what that means. So the way you find out is you say, for you student pilots or low-time pilots, can you continue with the briefing? Thank you. You should respond when they say this. This is kind of like they're making a statement and they're saying, do you want me to continue or not? Again, only a briefer will say this. You're not going to see it anyplace else because it requires briefer's judgment. So at that point, you student pilots, low-time pilots are going to say, yes, can you continue with the briefing? You're not going to say, can I have a practice brief or anything, or feel like you need to. They're just giving you their statement. And when you get to the end of the briefing, you may see that all conditions were VFR and visibilities were unrestricted. All the forecasts were in alignment with that, except for that airment. So then at that point, there's nothing wrong with querying that briefer. Please don't do it like you're in a battle with them. Do it like you're in a discussion and say, you said VFR flight not recommended, but I didn't see any currents or forecasts that aligned with that. And then that briefer can come back and say, well, yes, there was this going on. They may be just thinking that you're going to top out a small valley that does have some IFR conditions, and maybe it's not a factor for you. And you could just say that, oh, well, I'm just going to top that out. That won't be a factor. Or you could say, oh, yeah, I don't really want to fly if those conditions are going. Okay, thank you. Or you could say, or they may say, it was just a CYA, cover your tail, protect yourself, right? And if they say that, then that kind of, I don't really like that, but that's just my opinion. Or they may say, you know what, there is a frontal system up north that's moving a little faster than we thought, and I think you're going to run into IFR conditions. And then you can make a good decision. Just remember, it is your decision. This is a recommendation only. I used to have a lot of pilots that used to hang up as soon as we'd say that because they didn't want to hear it. Or yell at us. And, really in the end, it is your decision. You are the pilot in command. It is up to you to make good, safe aviation weather decisions. Just, if you take off and you go fly into a storm that I said was just 5 miles west, you're going to be in trouble in more ways than one. So please do make good, safe aviation weather decisions. Now, tailwinds, crosswinds, gusty winds, updrafts, downdrafts, that accounts for 74% of the weather-related accidents. And I will tell you, it covers most of the fatalities that I know of. As I said earlier, I lost my 9-year-old nephew in an aviation weather-related accident, and that was due to gusty winds. Most of the fatal accidents that I investigated over the years were due to winds. over 50%. But I was flying in areas where I was briefing in areas and investigating in areas where there was big mountains, and a lot of stuff happens around those mountains. So we've got AirMet Tango, but the thing to keep in mind with AirMet Tango is that it does not cover uh, many types of winds other than the big scale things. So the local things that we have, like the onshore flows, the offshore flows. By the way, winds are named for where they're coming from. So when we have offshore flow, that means the wind's coming from offshore. Onshore flow means the wind's coming from onshore. Lake effect, the wind is coming over the lake. Mountain wave, the wind is coming from the mountain, but mountain wave is a specific thing. And mechanical turbulence. Mechanical turbulence is where you have downdrafts or gusty winds or eddies, spinning air forming from wind over rough terrain. It also doesn't cover convective. Occasionally it will issue a one for mountain wave, but not generally speaking, not what I've found. And then also convective turbulence, it also doesn't include that. So this is just very basic. You do need to know to look at the highs, the lows, the circulation around those to see what they're going to do in your areas. But just seeing if that's there is going to be a big step. Now, if you're flying and you see one of these, that means you got mountain wave. Mountain wave, the worst of it is going to be within 2,000 feet of the crest of the mountain, up or down. And you probably don't want to fly in that, right? Unless you're somebody with a lot of experience, or you're figuring out how you're going to avoid it. Right here is also a visual of what we see with mountain wave on the satellite. Satellite is a go-to tool for some of the turbulence. Now here we see two different kinds of turbulence that I'm going to talk about. One is mountain wave. See these lines, these rotor clouds? That is telling us that there is a wave formation off from these Appalachians. It's getting enough moisture off the Atlantic that they're forming very nicely. On the West Coast, you're not going to see them form that well. On the West Coast, you're going to see something more like an individual standing lenticular, or a couple of them like right here. Now, what altitude is mountain wave at? We don't know. We do know that the worst of it's going to be within 2,000 feet of the crest, but those clouds could be at 14,000 feet. All it tells us is that one of those altitudes, the temperature dew point spread came together. Now down here, we don't have it, and that's because mountain wave, those clouds, those rotor clouds, are not an indication that it's not occurring, or the absence of them doesn't mean that it's not occurring. So seeing them means that you got it. Absence of them does not eliminate the concern. So yes, I would guess that down here we do have it because I see some indications right there. And of course, Wyoming's always like that. Icing. Now for icing, you can look at the AirMet Zulu, but what I recommend you do is there is now a freezing level chart on there. I recommend that you look and say, are we going to have clouds, rain? Are we going to be flying in clouds? If our pilots are not going to be flying in clouds, are we going to be flying in rain, drizzle, mixed precipitation? If the answer is yes, look at the freezing levels. And the freezing level chart will tell you exactly what you're going to be looking at in terms of temperatures. Now here you can see that we've got, it's forecasting icing. And right next to it has this freezing level chart. And I think I have it on here. So for those of you that don't know how to read this, we're going to cover this. This zigzag line says that the freezing level, 0 Celsius, is at the surface. Then it goes in 4,000 foot increments. This one's freezing levels at 4,000, this one freezing level at 8,000, this one freezing level at 12. And where they intersect, it means there's multiple freezing levels. So right here, we would have multiple freezing levels. We'd have one at 4,000 and one also at 8,000, or pretty near there. As we go up here, you can see it's actually plotted it. And it's saying the freezing level is at 7,000 and at the surface, but we've also got the 4,000 in there. I would expect another freezing level in there. So you've got to know where those are at, because that's going to mean that you're going to have various conditions going on. So that's how you read it. So the railroad tracks mean the 4,000 foot increments, and the zigzag means that you've got it at the surface. Now this site right here is a great site The FAA safeties and fellow FAA safeties and CFIIs that I work with say that this is their go-to site to ensure that they're not flying into icing. So this is on aviationweather.gov. It is called the Supplementary Icing Information, CIP, FIP, Current Icing Potential, Forecast Icing Potential. You can input your icing, what you're looking for, and the date, and then select your altitude, and it will come up with a report. Now here it's saying that we're going to have trace to light icing, and it's also showing the hashtags. That means SLD threat, supercooled large droplets. That's generally associated with the convective activity. So I hope you're not flying in that. And then it's also putting pilot reports in here. It's interlaying pilot reports. Up in the Great Lakes area where we get some of the worst conditions in the world, worst icing conditions in the world, pilots tell me that this has been their go-to tool, and it's been very, very accurate. So now we've looked at the adverse conditions. We're going to go to the surface analysis. Now, the surface analysis, you need to know how to read this. And this is what's coming up here. We've got the highs and the lows, and you've got to know how the circulations are going to affect that. For instance, if in California, if we have during the winter a high pressure system right here over the Great Basin, I am looking to see what the circulation is, because if it's coming around here, we're going to have severe turbulence in Southern California. Also right here, we can expect that we're going to have quite a bit of probably some turbulence right up in here, because that is a very tight circulation. We see these frontal systems moving on shore. What you see in terms of precipitation isn't necessarily there or not there. There could be precipitation in other places that it's not picking up. But you've got to know what you're looking at with that. You've got to have a basic understanding of that. And you'll notice that anymore, it doesn't give us a readout. The readouts that we used to get from the National Weather Service used to be beyond most pilots' understanding. So we've just gone to that map, but you do need to know what you're looking at. Up here, they're saying that we're going to be getting some mixed precipitation, but that is something that is just a heads up. You should actually know this well enough to say, it is wintertime, we've got a low pressure system, we got a chance of some icing, some low IFR conditions. And you got to know what these circulations mean, especially over mountainous areas where they're, see how it's narrowing right there, the circulation is? That's narrowing right coming over the mountains, and it's going to act as a funnel to speed up those winds. So you're going to have some massive winds there. Actually, that might have been. And a second here. Actually, it's going to be going the other way. Yep. All right. All right, now we're going to go to the current conditions, METARS, PIREPS, satellite, and radar. Now, when you were looking at satellite, this is visible. This big thing that looks like a comma is a comma cloud. You want to animate it. You want to see how fast it's moving. But if you see one of those comma clouds, you've got some of the worst conditions that you're going to see in the country, right? You also need to know what you're looking at, right? Whether you're looking at convective activity or stratiform precipitation, or stratiform clouds. We're going to talk about that in just a moment. This over here is a mosaic. Now, when you are west of Colorado, you've got extremely dry conditions, and you've also got a lot of mountains. So a radar site that is going around and picking up that precipitation, each meteorologist is controlling that and deciding what they're scanning for. They may be scanning to find the tops of the precipitation, which means that angle of that dish is going to be very high. They may be scanning mid-level to see if they can pick up precipitation, but they're picking up mountains, so there's stuff that's going to be picked up in there that isn't accurate. They may be scanning on what they call clear air mode, where they're not expecting any clouds or precipitation, where it's going to go around much faster. You've got to know what they're scanning for, but that will also pick up the surface. Now, this right here that we're looking at is a mosaic. A mosaic is where the groups that are doing this, this particular one is WSI, I believe, go in and they scan for the current reading for all the radar sites, regardless of whether they're done with their scan. They're going to pick up the last one, and they will create this mosaic. When they finish doing that, they're going to put a timestamp on it. That timestamp can be 10 to 20 minutes away from when that radar scanned it. And that is your mosaic. That is what you're looking at when you're looking at XM weather, ADS-BN, any of your data link radar. And it's also anytime that you're looking at a picture that is more than just one little radar site, that's what you're getting. Now in California, here we don't know what they're scanning for. They're saying that there is this is an indicator. You can actually scan down below it and it will explain exactly what that is. But basically what that means is that it's a warning for tornadoes. There's a circulation, a spinning circulation that's a warning for tornadic activity. We see in here some moderate to heavy precipitation, and also in here. The fact is that there was not tornadic activity. What it was doing is picking up the spinning as the wind passed through a mountain pass. I have seen where it looked like there was tornadic activity and severe extreme precipitation when there was actually nothing hitting the ground. I've also seen it the other way around where all we were picking up was the tops of the precipitation that looked extremely light and there was tornadic activity moving through here. So you got to learn to look further than that. And William says, can you give us a flow path in aviationweather.gov to get to that icing report again? What I would do, William, there are two go to aviationweather.gov and then go to, I think the first thing that comes up is hazards. I think we'll look at that in just a moment. That's an important thing. Jen, make sure that we add that to it. There's three main sites that I use, aviationweather.gov, and you should be able to find it. I think it's under forecasts. Go to icing. Now this is a satellite. You got to know what you're looking at here. There's two main things that you're looking for here. Stratiform clouds and convective clouds. That's the main thing that you're looking at for. This right here is stratiform. Stratiform means sheet-like. It moves in like a sheet. See how it's moving around these mountains? You can see the tops of those mountains poking out. You can see how it's sitting right against it. See the formation of the edges of those mountains there? You can also see it's moving up this valley. That is stratiform precipitation, and we know it's fairly low because we can see the mountains. If you know what the tops of those mountains are, you know what the tops of those clouds are. And down here, you can see it's moving out through that mountain pass. So with this, the main hazard is going to be IFR conditions, reduced visibilities, mountain obscuration, drizzly precipitation, if we've got it. And then we've got these clouds out here. And this is convective. It looks like a cotton field out here, right? We see the bright white surrounded by the darker grays all over here. And you can even see that that is moving down over the stratiform that's along the coastal area. See the shadowing and contouring right there? So those bright whites, that is definitely convective. But even just this right here, I see bright whites surrounded by darker grays or shadowing. Those are big monster, even up here, those are big monster thunderstorms right there. So, or CBs, you know, they're developing thunderstorms. So what you've got to know is that when you see those, you've got to animate it. If you see them developing, getting brighter and whiter and bigger, you got thunderstorms. Now with thunderstorms, you have all the hazards of aviation weather intensified significantly, plus some. You also have hail and you also have thunderstorms, or I'm sorry, lightning. And that is from, you can be affected by that from 25 miles away. The updrafts and downdrafts are very significant. If you're in a balloon, you're especially, or a glider, you're especially susceptible to that. So just avoid those. Now, as you're going through here, right up here, what we see is a pattern called a dendritic pattern. Dendritic means tree or branch-like. You can see that it looks like tree or branches, and that is generally snow on the tops of mountains or valley fog. That's when we get those patterns. So here, there's the Sierra, so we would assume that that is Snow on the tops of the mountains, except as you animate it, you see these little white dots getting brighter and whiter. What that means is we've got thunderstorms developing there. So if you were, this is early morning, and if you were going to fly through this mountain pass right here later in the day, I would certainly be watching for that, because you don't want to be within 25 miles, and you certainly don't want to be in a mountain pass and run into a thunderstorm. Right here, that is smoke from a forest fire. And up here, we didn't talk about cloud streets. These right here are cloud streets, streets like roads. It's when we have thermals that are rising and being pushed down over mountains. They turn into themselves and form eddies and spinning air, and so they're an indicator of severe turbulence. However, it's also an indicator of thermal, so it means glider pilots are going to have a much better time and a longer ride. So when you see that, if you're in a fixed wing or even a helicopter, you know that you've got a chance of severe turbulence. Don't forget to animate, biggest thing in here. Now we go to our current conditions, and in our current conditions, it's going to plot it. Now here you can see it's got some greens, and we don't have much right along our route, but anywhere we've got pinks, we've got low IFR conditions. Blue is VFR, or actually marginal VFR, so ceilings between 3,000 and 5. And here green is VFR, but notice there's not much right along our mountain route. However, south of our route, we see some low conditions. So this is a heads up of what you're going to see. You can also scan along the left-hand side and see what you can expect. If you're flying over mountains, any kind of mountainous terrain, and you're seeing marginal VFR, then you're going to have mountain obscuration. Very good likelihood of that. And down here, I want to point out, we've got all different kinds of things. I do like the relief map that we've got here, but you can also pull this up and get echo tops, base reflectivity, visible satellite. So you can get a lot of great stuff there. So here's what we're looking at here. And again, you can scan the left-hand side, but you can also look through here. Now, what you're going to look at, what you're looking for, is you want to scan down on the ceilings and visibilities and very quickly assess what you've got. This can be a little bit overwhelming for most of you, or some of you, but remember, most of what's behind remarks is for the National Weather Service. So here we see at Boeing Field, we've got a ceiling of 10,000 broken. Ceilings are broken to overcast layers above sea level. We only get AGL reports or above ground level, not above sea level, above ground level. When we get that over, we get this in METARs and we get that in TAFs, those reports above ground level. Almost all your other weather is going to be MSL. So here we've got few to broken clouds at 10,000 feet, and then we start seeing some low IFR conditions, a couple of areas where it's clear below 12,000, and then it goes into mostly low IFR conditions. We can kind of see that pretty quickly. This right here, RVR, that says runway 5 RVR, is 1,200 variable 1,800 feet. What they did is they took a piece of equipment and they aimed it down the runway and they measured what the actual visibility was, and they're going in number of feet because a lot of commercial aircraft can use a reduced visibility lower than what they can get in the report, so that's why they do that. So right here, I'm going to just show you something. Right here, if we're looking at this report, I can see that we've got low IFR conditions on the western side of the Appalachians. This one's clear below 12,000 and visibilities are generally unrestricted, but it's late at night. The temperatures and dew points are going to be dropping. So look at these dew point spreads. We've got almost nothing, and those winds are less than 5 knots. So we're going to be seeing some low fog all along there. On the eastern side of the mountains, we see that we've got probably a system there. We've got heavy rain and ceilings of 6,000 overcast. Now the dew point spread's pretty close, but those winds at 6 knots are probably going to keep us from getting fog until that moves on. Now, if we clicked on the plain text, we're going to get about 20 times the data. You can look at that. You can read that. Just remember that it's going to also include all of that. And your ability to assess this quickly is going to be really vital. So really drill yourself on that for you student pilots. Now, VAD winds. Oh, we do talk about this on this one. This is something you should add to your standard weather brief. It is a current condition that is, in my opinion, one of the most valuable pieces of information that you can get. It is called VAD wind profiles. VAD stands for velocity, meaning speed, azimuth, meaning horizontal direction, display. VAD. It's plotted at every Doppler radar site across the country, and it's updated for every scan. In other words, it says every 7 to 10 minutes, but actually it could be every 5 to 10 minutes. So what you're going to do is you're going to see, remember I told you that most of the accidents that I had investigated were due to winds? This is going to give you a report and tell you what you're going to be looking at. I would include it in your standard weather brief. This site, it's located at pilotsandweather.com/SierraSierraRomeo.html. So there's really 3 sites that we're going to be looking at. And Jen, remind me, we're going to update these notes and we'll send those out to you. I'm going to give you some better notes because I think we've added a couple of things and based on William's question there. And also I see President asking some questions. We'll get to that when we get to the Q&A. So this is the site that you go to. SSR just stands for single site radar.html. It has the best single site radar, which means that you're not looking at a mosaic, you're looking at the single site radar. You've got to animate it and look at what it's doing. You've also got to see what they're scanning for and see if there's movement. You've got to associate anything that you're seeing with that with the satellite. That's a little more advanced, but just to first assess whether that is what you're going to be looking at. Now this is the chart. It's starting at 2,000 feet. This is the first 1,000 feet above ground level. It's going all the way up to 50,000 feet. And here's the time. It's going to show like an hour and a half. An hour. Usually it shows an hour. And these are the wind barbs. Now the wind barbs are pointing in the direction the wind is blowing to. Again, winds are named for where they're coming from. So if we have a northerly wind, we can generally recognize that as a cold, dry air mass. A southerly wind is generally a moist, warm, moist air mass. But you've got to know where they're coming from, and where they're coming from, they're going to pick up those characteristics and move them into your area. So that's why we want to name them that way. Now these are the long barbs are 10 knots and the short ones 5. A triangle would mean 50 knots. So here at 2,000 feet, the first 1,000 feet above ground level, we've got winds out of the northwest at 20 knots. Now what we had at the surface, it was, a second, let me get this. What we had at the surface was winds that were 5 knots out of the west. That looks like it's with that, so let me try it again. 5 knots and out of the west. So we can see there is a significant change in directions between the surface and 2,000 feet, and we can see that there's a big change in velocity. That would be a big danger point, and if you're a more advanced pilot and you're used to it, that would be fine. But more than about 30 degrees, more than about 10 knots within takeoff. I mean, you can talk to your CFIs about what they recommend, but changes in direction, changes in velocity on climb out you're especially vulnerable then. So I really keep an eye out for that. When you see ND and then suddenly you see something like here where we suddenly have 20 knots of wind, you're going to have some eddies. It's like where you have 2 streams coming together. One where the stream is running very fast, one where the stream is running very slow. If they come together, right where they meet, there's going to be friction. That's going to cause eddies, spinning air, and you're going to have some turbulence there. So these barbs, if they're green to blue, means reliable. Yellow to red means not reliable. Whoops. Doggone it. I hate it when it does that on me. I've got a Mac, and so yellow to red means not reliable. And that is what you're going to see with bugs, birds, bats, etc., right? So check that against the surface winds and check with the nearest sites around you. Check it several if you don't have one right overhead. And also check it against the winds law forecast. Talk more about that. En route forecast. This is one of the places that I do not like what 1-800-weatherbrief.com is doing. Their chart is not great. I've sent a message to them. So what I recommend you do for your en route forecast is go to aviationweather.gov, go to tools, and pull up the GFA, graphical forecast for aviation. It'll say Golf Foxtrot Alpha. When you bring it up, you're going to set your time for the time that you're going to be flying. You're going to check several times, and you're going to select clouds. Now, clouds are MSL cloud layers. So, and here you can say what the bases are, especially if you're flying. And this is what will come up. Now then, let me blow this up. So here we can see that it's saying 4,500 overcast, tops at 5,000, cirrus above, and over here 2,500 overcast, tops at 3,000, cirrus above. Could we fly between these 2 points VFR? And the answer is no. Reason is that the surface elevation is pretty high here, and this is MSL. It's the en route forecast. We're under clouds. Now, if we were looking at ceilings, it's a different story, but here we're looking at cloud layers. So this to here, I think those clouds, I think that layer right there is about, I don't know, it's pretty high. This would mean that we're going to be in low IFR conditions. And you can take this color and look down here, and it's saying that we're going to have very low cloud bases within the 100 feet of the surface. So it's saying 2,500 overcast, but it's really meaning low IFR. It's also going to tell you what the tops are. You can click on tops there. This is a great site. You can also verify it with ceilings, but remember to check several of the sites to see what they're forecasting there. I also like to check this thunderstorm site right there. And here is the ceilings. And it's saying that the ceilings are going to be between 300 and 500 in this area. Also, you can say it's got these symbols, and you can click on this weather symbol and it will bring this up. And it's saying there's some rain in the area. Now we're going to go to the terminal forecast. The terminal forecast is the most accurate of the forecast tools, bar none. However, I used to see a lot of pilots that would just say, just give me the METARs and the TAFs, and they think that they could make a decision based on that. The TAFs are very good. However, they are not a replacement for looking at the en route weather. You've got to get the big picture. The TAF, that meteorologist that writes that TAF, that first off, the TAF is, they may not catch a change that's going on. And they're valid for a long period of time, and the meteorologist is severely limited in what they can say, and that TAP is only for 5 statute mile radius. It is a point forecast along your route. So major weather can be coming through, and if that meteorologist isn't absolutely certain that weather is going to affect your airport within 5 statute miles, they will not forecast it. So with our next gen, it is highlighting, it's saying what your passing time is. Here, we're departing from Asheville at this time. 5 minutes after we leave, the weather's changing. 60 minutes after we leave, it's changing again. Here's our passing time at Knoxville. And here at Chattanooga, and it's changing 34 minutes after that. You can also scan, and the color of that is going to help identify what's going on. So this is a really valuable tool for you, and you can quickly assess whether you're going to have good VFR conditions, marginal conditions, or IFR. Again, if you're looking at marginal and you're going to be flying over mountains, I would reconsider if you were only VFR capable. One other thing to know is that this right here, showers in the vicinity. Anytime you see showers, SH, in a terminal forecast only, that meteorologists may be using that as a placeholder for thunderstorms. They may be expecting thunderstorms. So just keep that in mind. And winds aloft. Now the winds aloft forecast is based on the 00, they do, the meteorologists, the weather observers launch balloon launches at 00 Zulu and at 12 Zulu. From that, they gather a lot of information about what's going on in the upper atmosphere, and they feed it into a computer, and it comes out with the winds law forecast. The winds law forecast does not change if the winds aren't actually doing that. They don't do anything with them, and the forecasts are valid for a very long time. So when you're looking at this, first off, it's not going to forecast any location where the surface elevation is above 1,500 feet as it is near Spokane there. Spokane's at 1,952 feet. So when they were forecasting that layer at 2,500, that meant that it was going to be like a 600-foot ceiling, right? And it also will not interpolate it. So this is 210. The wind's coming out of the southwest at 24 knots. That's a heck of a lot of wind at 3,000 feet. You've got to, again, compare that to the surface elevation and compare it to the VAT. So if you saw big changes along the route, you would know that you also had a chance of that. Excuse me, of running into turbulence. This is light and variable. That's pretty good. Also remember, if you've got a frontal system moving through, those winds are going to change. And they're going to change about 180 degrees. So you've got to be aware of that also. So I hope that was helpful. We are going to go through the 10 top tips. I want you to stick around for that. I've got a story that will talk about the importance of really hearing what's going on with the briefing, and then we're going to open it up for Q&A. And we want to make sure that also if you're participating in the WINGS program that we're going to talk a little bit about that. But understanding weather is vital to your health. This is my 4-minute word from our sponsor. And I had somebody had asked, where can we learn more about weather? I'm glad you asked. I have been volunteering to do these webinars for a very long time, and I realized that there was a need for more. Pilots were coming to me and asking me, like one of the pilots did here, for more information on how you understand weather. Most of the books that I was looking at, you had to read a lot of books to just get the basic information that you're looking at in a standard weather brief. Further, I didn't see anybody teaching the standard weather brief. That standard weather brief is vital to your health and understanding what you're getting. So I put together a program that does that. It's called the Aviation Weather Series. I believe it's a must for all pilots. It is, I think there's, I don't know how many videos there are in the program now, but it's an on-demand training program. In other words, you log on online and you watch these videos, and it goes through, and I think we're setting up questions and answers throughout it, and then you can watch it time and time again. You can review it. You can, and most of our pilots do watch it every quarter. We've had this out for about 3 years. 3 years ago, we had 3 little videos. Now we have, I don't know, quite a few. It qualifies for master's and advanced WINGS credits. Now, for those of you that don't know, if you participate in the continuing education program with the FAA Safety Office, you don't have to pay for the expense or the nerves of doing a check ride to maintain your proficiency. So, but to not have to do that check ride, you have to get those master's credits. Now, we're not talking about getting your initial certificate, okay? For you student pilots, don't get too excited about that. But as you maintain your proficiency, you have to get those master's credits. And those master's credits are not, there's not many of them, and a lot of them you have to go in person. So I took this down to the FAA and I said, does this qualify for master's credits? They put on us some requirements, but they said not only does it qualify, but it qualifies for several of the major categories that you've got going on. So you're going to be able to get those, and you can get them every quarter, a couple of times a year. We also threw in an intro video, which is exactly what I was looking for when I was first starting to briefing. It is intro to briefing. There's 2 little videos there. It shows me coaching a pilot through getting a standard weather brief, how to prepare, how to talk to a briefer, and how to get the information that you need. Then we've got also conducting a safe briefing. This takes the briefing into a whole new level where you're going to actually learn what you're looking at when you're looking at radar and how to analyze what you're really getting. You're going to learn about satellite and how that all fits together. You're going to learn about the METARs and what the surface analysis means, and really you're going to come out of there with a very good understanding of weather and how to analyze the weather. Then we're going to go into the basics of weather. The basics of weather. The problem that I've seen with most courses is that you go into it. We actually had a professor that was, he actually contacted me and said his students had told him that he needed to take my course. He was actually choked up about it because he said he was trying to teach weather that he thought was so important, but his students were just glassy-eyed. And so he took my course. He said, they told me that you're the one that teaches the weather that they understand. So he took this course to learn how to teach the weather simpler. That was pretty cool. That's what this is going to do. And then we're going to do putting it all together where you'll walk through numerous briefings and be able to analyze and evaluate the weather on what you've got. Also, we're going to throw in Aviation Weather Made Easy, the pre-flight brief. This is our little basic book on pre-flight briefs. It's about 120, 130 pages. We are coming out with the second edition. Because there's been so many changes in the way that you get briefings over the last 2 years. So that is coming out because that is in the process of being redone. What we're going to do is we're going to send you a one of the, I think it's a PDF of the book. Jen can confirm that. Anyway, it's an ebook. You can read it online. So you're gonna get that in addition to it, and then as soon as we get the second edition out, we'll ship that to you. Tim says, "How do I get the Aviation Weather Series?" I'm going to tell you that in just a second. So what you're going to learn is you're also going to get this weather risk assessment chart and the hazards. This is how you go through in a higher level of knowledge of how you assess conflicting weather. You're going to have 7 videos that help you do that. And here's how you get it. Oh, one more thing. Also, for each area, there are hazards in all over the country that if you don't know what you're looking for, you can fly into that. That's what's Scott Crossfield did down here. That's what Steve Fawcett did up here. So we're going to have interviews with CFIIs, short little things, whether you're traveling or whether you just want to find out for your area. So here's what you get. We've got our webinar special. It's always the best special that we offer. 5 on-demand training videos, 7 hazard bonus videos, the book, plus you're going to get an ebook, weather risk assessment chart, the regional weather overviews. It's a $297 value, and you're going to get it for $138.99. Here's where you can get it, Tim. Thank you for asking. Also, Jen just entered the link over in the chat room, and so you can click on that, and it will take you right there. I do want to see you on this. I think this is a great program, and you're going to get a great understanding of weather. All right. It is a good program. All right. The 10 top tips to a better briefing. Number 1, take the 5 to 10 minutes, sit down, take notes, be attentive. 2, be a pilot in command. You got to know how to do that, right? 3, know the elements to a standard weather brief. But being the pilot in command, by the way, does not mean that you're rude. It means that you are making sure that that briefer is talking to you, that you are getting every piece of information, that you're not passing stuff that you don't understand, that you're gaining the information that is required for you to make a good, safe aviation weather decision. Know the elements to a standard weather brief. Have an idea what you may encounter prior to that brief. There's an overview process that we talk about also. If you're talking to a briefer, ask questions if you don't understand. And if that briefer is going too fast, let them know that. Let them know if you're a student pilot or a rusty pilot, or maybe you've just never called flight service before. Log on to 1-800-weatherbrief.com to get updates on adverse weather. Get a standard weather brief within 2 hours of your flight and an update within 30 minutes. And lastly, and most importantly, educate yourself on aviation weather. It's the most important thing you can do. Got to get there, rightus. This is a story that haunted me. It was 9 years ago, last Thanksgiving. It was IFR conditions, of course, because it was Thanksgiving Day, which was the busiest briefing day of the year. And this pilot was flying from Sacramento area over a 7,300-foot pass to the Reno area. He had been waiting probably 45 minutes to an hour to get to me. And once he did get to me, while he was waiting, he loaded up his car, drove to the airport, and was now loading up his plane. Turkey was in the oven, had to get there. Put me on mute, and I started the briefing. Within a few seconds of talking to him, I spotted something that could have been mountains on radar. However, I knew to look at the infrared to see if there was vertical development. I looked at the surface analysis and also at the satellite, and I said, you know what, sir, I think you got a developing thunderstorm on your route. No response. Sir? Sir, did you hear what I just said about, yep, got it, thanks. Put me back on mute. Kept going, saw a pilot report, an urgent pilot report, severe turbulence along his route. Now, what happens is in a thunderstorm, in the developing thunderstorm, you end up with these severe up and down drafts. As a matter of fact, they're so severe that they can break up. We had a plane, we found parts of his plane in 4 states that was down in the southeast. So I am trying to get his attention again. He's going to be flying through a mountain pass, IFR, when he encounters this condition. And so I am really trying to get his attention. No response. Sir? Sir, did you hear? Yep, got it. I get to the end of the briefing. A center weather advisory pops up. Severe embedded thunderstorms. Now remember what I said earlier. When you've got a center weather advisory, a convective SIGMET, weather watch, you got the weather. He's going to be flying through this mountain pass and encounter this. And he's not even going to know what hit him. I try to get his attention, and I can hear he's just getting a little frustrated with me because he wants to get off the phone. So finally, I ended the briefing. I should have disconnected, but I didn't. He should have disconnected. Instead, I heard him say, "All right, kids, in the plane." And I heard these little kids cheering as they're running across the pavement towards the plane. And I said, whoa, wait, sir? He says, yeah. I said, those your kids? He said, yeah, they're my kids. I said, do you love them? Because they're probably not going to make it to that turkey dinner. He said, what are you talking about? I said, severe embedded thunderstorms. He said, severe embedded thunderstorm. Long pause. And I hear a door open. I hear a door close. He says, do you think you could start from the top of that briefing? And in about 15 seconds, he decided he was driving. And I nearly cried. So don't let that be you. All right, we've got a couple of things to go through. Jen wants me to just let you know that we rarely have any of the signed books left. Did I even cover that? First 5? I think I did. First 5 to purchase it are going to get a signed copy of the book as soon as we have our 2nd edition. But do send me a note on that if that's something that you want, because we get multiple people selecting this at the same time. So, let's see here. So thank you very much. I appreciate your time and your interest. Notes and links. Jen, let them know where they can get those notes and links. Rob, I'll make sure you get a signed copy. CFIIs, if you want to participate in that regional weather, please send me an email at customerservice@fly-right.com. Put CFII on the subject line, and we'll send you a query, and then we can start putting it together. For wings credits, please give us your wings email if you didn't already, and then allow 3 to 5 days. Then you can go and check on the FAA safety site, faasafety.gov, and go in there, log on, go in and look at advanced credits. Please do this because we get a lot of people that say, did I get wings credits? So help us out. We have we run about 1,000 to 1,500 wings credits a month, and it really helps us if you can do this. So log on there, and then if you don't find it there, log on the exact date of your attendance and give us the specific email you used to register. Also, here is the FAA safety site. Now, if you don't know about the WINGS program, there's a little tutorial here, very valuable. They also have a great program for AMTs. So this is where you want to go and really take the time. There is so many great resources and a lot of FAA safeties out there that really want to help you understand what you're doing in aviation better. And let's see here. All right. Hi, Kenneth. Kenneth says, I have your first book. When is the second edition coming out? You know, our publisher sometimes takes a little longer to issue things. I think they usually take a couple of weeks. We are expecting that it's going to be submitted next week, bar no other emergencies come up that I have to jump onto. And then that should be available, and you should be getting that version. So that should be available in a couple weeks. Hi, Pat. Great to see you. Thank you. And hi, Charles. Currently CFI, hoping to finish double I shortly. Oh, wonderful. And how quick to get a link for Aviation Series after purchasing? You get it immediately. Again, you get the link immediately. So watch, because it pops up another window and you got to make sure that you go in there, okay? Please do that. We have people that like 3 months later, you never send us our videos. No, yeah, yeah, at the window. And it's always, I always think, oh, shoot, they've been waiting for it. So we try to make sure that you always get that. Hi, Vince. To contact us for wings credits, again, what we need from you on that is you're going to email here. You're going to go on to your faasafety.gov site. You're going to log in and check and see if you got the wings credits. And then for this seminar, you're going to wait at least 3 to 5 days and log on to faasafety.gov, see if the wings credits are there under advanced. If they are not, then you can shoot us an email to here. Give us the specific date that you attended. We have some people that say I attended last month, and we'd have to go through all the webinars that we did, and we just can't do that. And we also need to know specifically the email address that you used to log on. That's the only way that we can do that. Thank you, Paul. And if you wait more than 3 months, we don't have the records anymore, by the way. Hi, Paul. You're welcome. Hi, Peter. Oh, Northeast, your power is flickering on and off. I'm sorry. Yeah, you got a nor'easterly, don't you? Hi, Mark. Thank you so much. And another Mark. See you in a couple of weeks. Knocking out the rust. Oh, cool. Thank you, Vince. Pat says, I got the new window, but no sign-in page. Jen, can you help Pat with that? I know Jen's probably already helping you. Hi, Jamuel. I think I'm pronouncing your name. You're welcome. Hi, Tom. What is a legal briefing? Why do People always ask me that. I love that question. So what is a legal briefing? There is no such thing, according to the head of the FAA program for the, or the flight service program for the FAA. What that is there used to be a requirement that you called flight service and got a brief or had a dispatcher. There is no longer that requirement. Now you can go online and get your own briefs. However, if you go out and fly and there is no record of that brief, if you have an accident, incident, or deviation, and there's no record of that brief, they're going to assume that you did not get a weather brief. The way that you can make sure that you have a report of that is to go to 1-800-weatherbrief.com. Of course, DUATS is also another legal resource, as is phoning flight service as a recorded brief. But those are the only ones that I know for sure are. I've seen people have said ForeFlight does. Well, what the problem is that you have to click the brief button. And when you do that, it takes you to DUATS, I believe. I don't like DUATS for briefing. I just think 1-800-weatherbrief.com is DUATS, and 1-800-weatherbrief.com is like the difference between riding a tricycle and driving a Ducati. They're that different, and you're going to really like 1-800-weatherbrief.com. Much, much better. So that's what I recommend. Hi, Rick. All right. I just turned 60 and haven't flown in about a year due to health problems. So these webinars help me keep up to date. Oh, awesome. Hope to see you back in the seat pretty soon. Thanks, Bob. All right, and we're going to wrap it all up. For those of you that are interested in the future of aviation, there is a cool, very cool new flying car that's about to take flight. It's called the Switchblade. I'm going to have one of those. It's a flying sports car. It was featured in Smithsonian, and I became very close friends with the people that are doing this, and I just think it's the coolest thing ever. They are so smart, and the problem is that most of the flying cars aren't much of a flying car, or they're designed to not actually drive on the roads. They're designed to drive down your private driveway, down your private road, to your private runway. This is actually designed to fly on the roads. It looks just so cool. It's a three-wheeler, basically, but it outmaneuvers a Jaguar XJS on the roads. It's super aerodynamic, and it is the coolest looking thing. Man, I'll tell you what. And the price is incredibly reasonable. So it is taking flight in, let's see, I think they're saying around April 1st. You can go onto our Facebook site, and it's got an interview with the genius that invented it, and you can find out more information. Or you can go to, I think it's Samson Switchblade is where you can find it online and go take a look. If you sign up for the program, let them know that I sent you. They like that. And let's see here. Oh, Jen says you need to check your email to get the links to create your login. So check your email. She just corrected me. I pronounced your name all right. Quick question. I have not yet finished the basic part of Wings credit. Will this webinar still be credited under the advanced credits? Yes, it will. Hi, Ray. ForeFlight may be very similar to FlyIQ EFB. I think it is. FlyIQ has one register to your preferred briefing service. So if you hit brief in FlyQ, it is connecting with that service. I'm connecting with 1-800-WeatherBrief or the old Lockheed Martin site. Well, 1-800-weatherbrief.com is all they've got. Oh, that's really interesting, Ray. I've been wondering about that. That's very cool to know. So you're saying that when you're on, I think ForeFlight only forwards you to DUATS, unfortunately. I've been asking that and I haven't gotten an answer on that, but FlyQ gives you the choice of which one you're going to get your brief from. This is very cool. Thank you for telling me that. And Jen is quickly answering people and helping them get this, so we'll stay on while you're trying to do that. And I'll answer any questions. You're welcome, Errol. Great to have you here. Great name. All right, everybody. Jen, do you need me to stick around? Is anybody still getting help here? And Jen, I just saw it. Thanks, Rob. Thank you, Leah. Is that William? Oh, so please email Jennifer at customerservice@fly-right.com. If you haven't gained access immediately, then Jennifer can help you with that. And let's see here. And let me just double check on Pat's. And checking. And Pat, is it under your name? What is our Facebook page? Jen, can you post our Facebook page? We should actually have that link on this. Let's do that. But I think when you go to our site, Bob, you go to fly-right.com and it has the link right there. That's the easiest way. All right. You're welcome. Thank you. I think we also have it on our YouTube site. All right, everybody, we're going to wrap it up. Thank you so much. And Pat, I think Jen's going to help you to make sure she can actually do a couple of things that can help you on that. Thanks, Curtis. All right, everybody, we'll talk to you later. Jen, do you need me to leave on or are you okay if we log off? All right, we're going to hang on 1 second here. All right, everybody. I want to thank you again, and we'll see. And Rob, did you get that email? Thanks, Errol. We'll see you later, Tim. Okay, Rob, I'm going to have Jen's going to contact you via email or actually, why don't you, Jen, why don't you give Tim or who was it? It's scrolled by 2 minutes too often. Why don't you get, oh, you've got the email? Okay. And Rob, why don't you give Jen your phone number and she can give you a call right back? Great. Jen, you got it? Thank you, Rob.